have such sights to show you.
Some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
But the prime time, bitch!
Fucking nuts.
Hey, what's up, ghouls and gals? It's me, Ryan.T here, and I'm gonna review Creepshow 3. Guys, since this is an anthology movie, which means there is basically like 5 mini movies within this movie, I'm going to break them up into like 5 pieces. So, for example, the one that I'm going to review right now is a short movie, or whatever you want to call it, called Alice.
My name is Alice.
So we'll get right into that right now. I just want to start off by saying, holy shit, was this movie a fucking chore. It felt like if I spent like an eternity watching this fucking movie. I was literally sitting watching this movie, and I felt like if I had been watching it for like several fucking hours.
What year is it?
Mind you, the movie is only like about an hour and 44 minutes, but it feels like if it's about 4 hours fucking long, because this movie is so fucking boring. This movie has like a fucking identity crisis. It doesn't know what the fuck it is. It doesn't know if it's a comedy, a horror film. It doesn't know what it wants to be, and at times it tries to combine both of those things together when it can't even do one or the other right. And I'm not gonna lie, if you can combine horror and comedy together like Scream, I mean, sometimes it works. Sometimes you get a good movie. But there's other times like this film where they try to combine horror and comedy, and it just ends up being a weird, corny fucking mess. Alright, that's just my general, outlook on this film. So again, let me get into this specific short story or whatever. Let me open this beer first. So essentially, the first story, it's called Alice, and it follows, wouldn't you guessed it, a girl named Alice, and this is her. Well, Alice is kind of a fucking asshole and like super fucking annoying. She's kind of like just walking down the street going like, oh yeah, oh my god, I hate everybody in my neighborhood. I hate that guy. He's a weirdo. Oh my god, fuck that dude. So she's really fucking grating and annoying, and it just starts off with her like walking, over there to her house or whatever, and then she gets into her house, and then out of nowhere her grandma says this awesome thing.
She has no ass. An ass is more important than tits. Tits are for amateurs.
Yeah, her grandma just starts talking about like, oh, you're never gonna find a man because you have no ass. Everybody knows the ass is better than the titties, and you don't have any titties either. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? And the rest of the family is like equally fucking annoying. And so, like, like anybody would, the girl's like, I'm gonna exit this fucking room. So she just like walks out of the room and goes to talk on the phone, when out of nowhere it like she gets transported somewhere somehow. And at first I didn't really understand it, and then the movie is like, oh look, the dad pushed the remote, and then the remote is what made her transport to somewhere else. That's what this short story is basically about. It's about a fucking remote that transports you to somewhere else, and you don't know why it does that, and I don't know why it only transports this one girl when it's her dad is the one that's using it. So I have no idea what's going on, and the film is basically like you remember that movie Adam Sandler, Click? This movie? Well, it's like that movie, but even shittier. Like a shittier version of that movie. And mind you, I think this film came out before that film. I don't know. I don't think either one copied each other, because I don't think anybody would want to copy fucking the Creepshow 3, and I don't think anybody would want to copy Click. But that's essentially what this film is. And every time this girl gets transported to somewhere else, she gets like a new family. So she gets transported to a black family, and then she gets transported to like a Mexican family, and then she gets transported back to like another kind of family. So they do that for a little while, and it's kind of like, damn, how long are you gonna fucking do that? So also before I forget to mention this, while she's getting transported other places or to other families and stuff like that, she's also starting to mutate for some unknown reason, and she's mutating and she's turning into like, basically she looks like a fucking hot dog. This is what she looks like right here. And that's another thing. This film is oddly like obsessed with hot dogs. They're like always talking about hot dogs in this movie. Like there's always like a hot dog cart somewhere. There's always somebody eating a hot dog somewhere. Or there's somebody turning into a fucking hot dog. It's just a weird fucking movie. Well, long story short, this girl keeps interdimensionally like getting transported to other families and other dimensions and stuff, and she's getting all mutated for whatever reason. And finally she gets transported back to her original family, and they're like, oh my god, whoa, 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 because she looks all fucking like a human hot dog all inside out and shit like that. And you know, like she runs outside of the house or whatever, and then the family like runs out after her, and she runs into the arms of some random scientist or professor that lives on that block that girl's walking on, and I don't know where she turns into a fucking bunny rabbit. That's right, a fucking bunny rabbit. She wasn't turning into a human hot dog, she was turning into a fucking bunny rabbit. For what reason? Nobody knows. Not even this fucking movie. They don't explain anything. They just like, yep, there's this remote that the professor made, and she's turning into a rabbit, and that's it. That's that story. That's the Alice story. And I have to say that you can tell that they spent the most time on this story, and this story is the most annoying out of the 5 fucking stories. Oh yeah, that's another thing. This movie has 5 shitty fucking stories. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shitty fucking stories. Speaking of stories, let's get into the next one.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do.
Alright, this next one is a little bit better than the Alice story. This one follows a security guard, this guy. And he's kind of like, for lack of a better word, he's like a loser. He lives in like a shitty apartment in a shitty part of town, and he just kind of like treats himself shittily. He like drinks a lot, and he like eats badly, and he like has his room like a mess and shit. So basically, he's me. So this guy, he's like, you know, he's in his apartment, he doesn't have a TV, he doesn't have anything, and he's there like fiddling with like a fucking old radio. He's like, oh, I can't get this fucking thing to work, what the fuck? And so he gets bummed out about that, and so he decides like, well, you know what, I'm gonna go outside and go see if I can go buy a fucking radio from somebody. So he goes outside and he buys a radio from some old man, from this old man. Yeah! Who is, for some reason, like, fucking super hyper. Look, check him out. Check him out.
See this guy. I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't.
Yeah, every time the movie goes to this old man, because he's in more than one of these stories, he's always like, yeah, why? Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, why is this guy so off his fucking rocker? Like, that's fucking crazy. Anyway, going back to the main story. This guy gets this radio, and he goes to his house, and he starts like fiddling with it. Yeah, I'm bringing back the word fiddling. And he's fiddling with the fucking radio, and he's like, fucking thing doesn't work. And he's gonna chunk it, and the radio's like, don't do that. He's like, huh? What the fuck? And then he like is gonna do it again. It's like, don't do that. And he's like, what the fuck? And so he kind of like starts tripping out, and then the radio is just like, Dave, or his name's Jerry. Yeah, his name's Jerry. It's Jerry. And so she's like, Jerry, do this and this and this and this. And like the guy is just like, doesn't even question that the radio's talking to him. He's like, okay. And he just does everything that the radio tells him to do. And then the radio like eventually convinces him to like kill somebody, like all talking radios do. And then she's like, no, Jerry, like you gotta kill this fucking guy, and then you gotta like fucking kidnap his wife and kill the wife, and you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And then Jerry's just like, what am I gonna do? So he's just there like that, and essentially it's just about like a possessed radio telling this guy to do this, to do that, and eventually she tells him, hey, Jerry, go upstairs to this building and go steal this money. And you know, like, for somehow the radio knows where this money's at. I don't know how this radio came to be or who's inside of this radio, but this radio has a lot of intel about the hood. The radio knows what's popping in the hood. She knows what's going on in these streets. So this radio's like, hey, yo, homie Jerry, go up here and steal this money and stuff. And then Jerry's like, huh, I guess. And so he goes over there and steals the money. And then, like, that's when shit goes all crazy. That's when the radio's like, you gotta kill her, Jerry. You gotta kill her, Jerry. And so he starts, like, killing people and stuff. And then a policeman comes and is like, hey,
I don't give a what you think, Jerry.
like, Jerry, did you hear about, like, these people down around here? And he's like, huh, no. And so the policeman leaves. And then Jerry's like, man, we gotta leave the house and shit. And the radio's just like, I agree. So then they leave or whatever. And then out of nowhere, this like prostitute chick that like always randomly comes up to him throughout the day. Like he'll be walking home from work and she'll be like, Jerry, Jerry, and he won't say anything. He'll just be like, and then she'll be like, Jerry. So like that chick is like, hey, Jerry, can I go with you? And he's like, yes. And then so like she goes with him or whatever, and they run away, and she like has to go take a piss or something. They park somewhere so she can go take a piss, and he gets out of the car because the radio's like, bro, she's gonna kill you. Are you fucking stupid, Jerry? Don't be so dumb. And Jerry's like, radio, shut up, quit trying to cock block me. And then right when he's gonna turn around, she's like, and she shoots Jerry in the head, and then Jerry's like, oh, my head's all shot, and then he dies. And then she's just like, totally killed Jerry. And then another, out of nowhere, another gunshot gets fired. So then she's like, oh no, my head shot. And she's dead on the floor. And then it's some like random pimp guy that was like living in the same building as Jerry. I'm like super invested in the story of Jerry. Jerry lived a shitty life and he died a shitty way. So yeah, this random pimp guy, this guy.
What the hell?
He comes out of nowhere and he's like, hey, yo, bitch. And she shoots that chick or whatever, and then he takes the money, and then, big twist, he had a radio as well, and the radio was all like, Jerry.
What a twist!
And so that's how that one ends.
Fuck you, I'm drunk. Fuck you, I'm drunk for my beer down the sink.
The third story in this movie, see, I had a hard time thinking of what the third one was about because they're all so fucking boring. They're all so fucking boring. Like, oh my god, I can't say this enough how much of a fucking chore it was to finish watching this movie. But I digress, so let me get back to it. Alright, the third one is about, it's not about, the third one isn't the one about the professor's wife. The third one isn't the haunted hot dog. Okay, the third one is about this killer call girl. Ooh, she's pretty hot. This is her. She's pretty hot. I let her kill me any day, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's about this killer call girl, and this one is, I mean, it's weird to say this, but it's a lot less inventive than the previous ones, you know what I mean? Like, than the first two. This third one is really like, they were just like, hey, we need a third story to kind of like fill up time. What should we do? They're like, oh, I got it. Let's just do like one of those, you know, simple double cross type things where the killer thinks that he's the killer, but he's actually the one being hunted. So that's essentially what this movie is. This cam girl, sorry. This hooker or whatever, she's gonna go kill, she kills people or whatever, and then she gets a phone call from some guy, and he's like, hey, can you come to my house or whatever so I can bang the fuck out of you? And she's like, oh, yeah, totally, that's my job. So she goes over there to his house or whatever, and they're gonna, like, get to banging, and then that guy's like, hey, well, you know what, like, I'm into some freaking kinky-ass shit, like, you know, like, lay me on that bed, home girl, and put a fucking, a rag over my face and tie me up and shit, like, all 50 Shades of Grey and shit. And she's like, I didn't see that movie, but okay, I know what you mean. So she, like, is straddling him, and then she's all like on top of him, and he's all like, hey, what's going on up there? And she's like, oh, you're gonna see right now. And she like pulls out a knife, and she's like, oh. And that guy's just like, and she dies or whatever, and then she gets off of him, and she's like, huh, whatever. And she gets off, and she walks to the fucking shower to go take a shower, because I guess that's what you want to do, is leave like your DNA all over the place after you just killed somebody. But whatever, that's what she does. That's her thing. Whatever, not judging. So she gets out of the shower, and then she hears Rachel, Rachel, and she's like, what's that? And she's like, Rachel, why'd you kill me, Rachel? And she's like, huh, what the shit? And then she like walks up to that body, and she's like, And she shakes it, and then that guy gets up, and he's like, ah! And he has like fangs and shit. Okay, this is what he looks like. His makeup is probably the shittiest makeup that I've seen, but it's kind of like still somehow kind of creepy. Well, he looks like that, and he like bites her, and then it ends. That's literally all that story's about. It was really kind of just like to, you know, beef up the runtime, because I guess they were like, hey, we need to make it an hour and 40 minutes, so we need to make 120-minute story that's just like quick, you know, and blah 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 blah. And I will admit, this one seemed quicker than all the other ones. The next one is whoa shit, what was the next one? What was the next one? What was the next one? Oh, I got it. The next one was boop boop bap beep boop bap beep boop bap boop boop bap boop. The next one was the professor's wife. All right, this one, it kind of reminds me of the first one in the series, the Alice one, because it involves a professor, and it kind of like sort of connects all the stories together, or it attempts to connect all the stories together. It starts off with, again, this professor guy from the first one, and he is, you know, gonna have a wedding, and he's like, yeah, come to my wedding, yeah, I'm gonna get married, blah, 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 and everybody's just like, what, you're gonna get married? We thought you were gay. But they don't really ever say that, they just say confirmed bachelor, which is like code for, we thought you were gay. And so, he's like telling everybody, yeah, I'm gonna get married or whatever, and then he invites like his two favorite students from way back in the day, and they're all like, yeah, we're gonna go hang out with the professor, our fucking professor from like way back when, because that's not weird. So they're gonna go hang out with him, or they're hanging out with him or whatever, and the professor's like, yeah, look, meet my wife, and they're like, oh shit, she's really fucking hot, but super annoying. Dude, she is so annoying. This is her.
Girl has to watch their figure.
So yeah, she kind of does that, like, through the movie, like, so he does that every time she's on screen, so she's fucking super annoying. And so the professor is like, hey, I gotta go and, like, go pick up some shit. Y'all are cool here with my wife, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess. And so the professor leaves, and they're hanging out there with the wife, and then the guys, the two students of the professor get this idea in their head that the professor's wife is a robot, and they're like, yeah, man, it makes sense, because, like, she doesn't want to drink alcohol, and she doesn't want to eat. She must be a robot, dude! So that's basically their logic behind it. And also, they are like, oh, the professor, he's like a mechanical guy, engineer, or whatever, and, like, that would be something that he would do. And so they're like, let's get to the bottom of this. And so she comes back, and they're like, we got an idea. She comes back into the living room, and she's like, hey guys, can you help me with something in the kitchen? And they're like, yeah. So they go to the kitchen, and she's like, you know, they're in the oven, and she's like getting something, and they're like behind her like this, and then they're like, boom! They hit her with something, and she like knocks out, and then it like cuts to black, and it just shows them like sawing her in half and like ripping her legs apart and shit like that, and then they're like, there's no circuits in here! Where's the wires and the nuts and the bolts? And then they're like, it must be in here. So they keep like ripping her apart and shit like that. And one of the students notices there's like a scrapbook, like a marriage scrapbook, and he like starts flipping through it, and he's like, the professor, he's so crazy. Like, he went through all this detail to try to make this person look real. And so he's reading it, and then he's like, blah, 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 amnesia. Oh my god, that's a real person. As if that was the key indicator. That he read one little fucking article in a fucking scrapbook that said that she had amnesia. So that made him be like, oh shit, we've been ripping apart a real person this whole time. The blood and the guts and all that other shit didn't key you in onto that?
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Oh god. And then finally, the professor/husband comes home, and he goes to the oven to like open up the oven and get something. And by this time, the two students had already stashed the body, and they stashed some of the pieces in the oven. And so the professor comes in, and he opens up the oven, and he sees his dead wife. And you know what? I'm not even gonna reenact his reaction. This was his reaction. Yeah, that was his reaction, like, oh, yeah, as if this always fucking happens to him, as if he always finds his fucking wife's severed fucking head in the fucking oven. Oh, it's ridiculous. Move on to the next one.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
The fifth and final story in this anthology film is called Haunted Dog. And no, it's not what you think. It's not about a haunted dog. That would actually be pretty cool to see, like a possessed dog, like that show Mr. Pickles, like it's going around like murdering and like killing people. Well, murdering and killing are the same thing. If you're going around murdering people, that'd be cool. But this is not what this movie is about. This movie is about a homeless person that eats a hot dog and then dies and then becomes a ghost, then haunts the person that gave him said hot dog. Yep, you heard me right. It's about a homeless hot dog ghost. Yep, that's what the final story in the Creepshow 3 movie is about. A homeless hot dog ghost. Did you ever think that you'd be hearing that today? Did you ever think that that sentence would be inside of your brain? Homeless hot dog ghost? I didn't either. But yeah, before I get more into this last one, I'm going to kind of talk about, you know, I guess the story, because it kind of does have one. The story starts off with this asshole guy, like, being a super asshole, and he is a fucking asshole. I gotta admit it, like, he's a fucking asshole, but he's funny. So he's walking down the street, and he's like, yeah, I'm an asshole, blah, 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 blah. And he's walking down the street or whatever, and he comes across this homeless man who, like, asks him for, like, change and shit like that. And he tells him, like, no, I don't got any change, but I'll be thinking good thoughts for you, man. And the homeless guy's like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? And so the guy keeps walking, and wants a hot dog, because he sees a hot dog cart, because there's fucking hot dogs everywhere in this movie. This movie's like obsessed with fucking hot dogs. There's always somebody eating a hot dog or a hot dog cart somewhere. I know there's a lot of hot dog carts in New York, but I don't think there's that many fucking hot dog carts. Anyways, this guy, he gets a hot dog, he cuts in front of everybody in line, and he gets the hot dog, he's about to eat it, and it falls on the floor, and he gets a bunch of gravel on it and shit, and he picks it up, and he goes to the homeless guy, and he's like, hey, here, buddy, you want a hot dog? And the homeless guy, I guess, is blind, as well as, like, mentally ill, because he's always making this face. Literally, this is what the homeless guy looks like. He's constantly making that face. When he's a ghost, this is what he looks like. And he's still making that motherfucking face. You would think that death would alter your face somewhat, but it doesn't. Not for the homeless hot dog guy. His facial expression just becomes even more stupider as time goes by. So, the homeless hot dog guy dies, he becomes a ghost, and he haunts this fucking asshole guy who happens to be a doctor, like, for like a couple of days, and eventually the fucking asshole doctor guy just dies and has a heart attack, and that's the end of fucking Creepshow. That's the end of the Creepshow. The shittiest fucking anthology film that I've ever fucking seen ends with a shitty fucking ending. I'm not even gonna get into the sorta kinda ending where the professor fucking does voodoo on his wife and brings her back to life, because that's fucking too cartoonish. That's fucking clown shoes, dude. It's just fucking clown shoes. You know what? I'm Ryan.T, and that's all I gotta say about this shit show.